Yeah, and then you see all these little kids just standing there with a bike. It's like Stranger Things. All of us on little bicycles, just going.
It's like the equivalent of like people chasing after the Manapua man over here,
Right.
or like little food trucks.
And then and we just get like that was like heaven to us, just smelling the bakery, and that was an event. And like there would just be moments of times like this where things that are Hawaiian would just incept my life that I didn't know. You know, like the pigeon speaking grandmas. A lot of them doing Hawaii things, like at church events, there might be someone doing hula or whatever, like listening to the ukulele, someone plays that. And so I didn't really think that it was separate from like me that much. It was just elements of like, oh yeah, it's there. It's Hawaii. Like I've been seeing it since a kid.
Yeah.
And then the foods too, right? Because like,
So Hawaii to you was Asian.
Yeah, I didn't really know. You know, when you're a child, you don't know race and culture.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah.
So like you grow up eating local food, like all that stuff. And yeah, in my head, it was like either Japanese American. I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And then later in life, and I have relatives here. So I hear their stories about like my uncle, he grew up here and he told us about like Pearl Harbor. You saw this joke where my friends were like, yeah, my uncle saw Pearl Harbor, and then they're like, was he the one in the plane?
Yeah, which
or
view?
was he
was it like this? Like
or was
this?
it like no?
Or was it like this?
Right?
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, he saw that, and then he, you know, that motivated him to join the military, travel the world, all that stuff. And then he brought his family to California. And then his kids, my cousins, they were like, yeah, when, you know, we have kids and grow up, like we want to eventually make our way back. But instead of coming back to Oahu, they went to Maui. Yeah.
And then what made you come to Oahu?
Friends and lifestyle and like opportunity, I think. Like, so we would go to Maui a lot, and then from there we would just talk about like we should do something to like find a way to like stay or like build something here.
Plant roots.
Yeah, because like it's like his business is accounting, so he works on the mainland, and then at the time he was just like, yeah, I don't know about like building something here and competing with local. So he was like, I could just keep my firm, but I'll just like live and my family could like stay here. So he would fly back and forth, and I'm like, that's crazy. You would fly back and forth like every month. And it got me to think maybe I could do that too, because it just sounded crazy to fly every week back, you know?
A 5-6 hour flight.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
And eventually just got to this point where, you know, I became a partner to all these food brands. And then one of my close friends, David So, he would come here for this event called Collaboration. It was like I would say Collaboration was like the Asian American Showtime at Apollo. It was in multiple cities, and before there was Asians in Hollywood and things like that, that was the place where talent can be seen. Yeah, and they had one here in Honolulu. So he would come here and do the events, host it, do comedy or whatever. And so one time, I guess like we decided to come visit here and meet his local friends. And so after I went to Maui, I went here. And then I met everybody, and that's when I started building like a relationship with people here.
Yeah. Were you ever afraid of how people would view you? Because there's the tourist side where it's like, oh, tourists coming here, moving to Hawaii, opening up a business, like get out of here. You know, there's like those people that think like that.
Yeah, I didn't even know that till later.
Really?
Yeah, so like looking back, I realized normal way of introduction to Hawaii is like you go on vacation, you go to Waikiki, right? And then you go to the beach there, and then you might go to the Dole Plantation and do all those things. Yeah. My introduction was Maui and hanging out with my family in Wailuku and just like not really doing anything but just eating. and then McKenna Beach was my first. I was mind blown how beautiful it was. It's so different from a beach in LA. It's like, you know, in LA you got diapers and needles, and McKenna's like untouched, right? And then when I was in Oahu, like all my friends that I made here, it's funny, she told me recently, like, I made an effort to not expose you to Waikiki, because I was telling her Waikiki's cool. Ever since I opened up a shop there, it was so cool, right? And then she goes, yeah, like I went there like twice ever since, like before I opened up a shop there, right? And then so we would always go to like Yokes or Sunset Beach in North Shore, or like Nanakuli. I love Nanakuli. And maybe it's because of the way I look, or like no one ever made me feel unwelcome. It was the opposite for me. I always felt like when I came to Hawaii, I felt like no one, unless they were fans, like no one did a double take on me.
He's just another Asian.
Yeah, and I felt comfortable because it's like, I love road trips, right? And let's say like you going to Arizona or whatever, like there'll be times when people just stare, and I'm just like, well, I don't know, maybe they never seen an Asian before. I don't know, right?
It's crazy because there are people actually like that
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah, my brother went to a mechanic school out in Wyoming, and when I was a child, my parents, we did a road trip up there, and they told me that when we did a stop at a gas station, this couple were so fascinated that I could speak English, and they were like, "Where did he learn English?" And I was like, "I don't remember this story. I was a child." But I was like, so that's what it was. Like, they just didn't have exposure, right? So, like, I don't think, like, they hate me or anything like that. I just think maybe they never seen me. But I just feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But when I'm here, it just feels, like, completely different. Psychologically, it does something to you when, like, the cops look like you, or, like, you know, relatives of you, or, like, the politicians, and the whole thing is just... It's just a weird thing where it just feels like you're accepted.
Yeah, so like Governor Ige felt like your uncle.
Unfortunately, because I know he's not that popular out here, but yeah. I mean, same effect when I went to Japan. Like, I only went like twice in my life, even though I was born and raised in the States, right?
Yeah.
When I went there, it was like, oh, these people all look like my aunties and uncles. Like, it's weird. Because my only connection to Japanese people was my relatives, and my church. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
The Asian American experience.
Yeah, because I feel like, because our population is majority Asian, I just feel like that's my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know, I always felt more comfortable in the minority.
Yeah.
You know, whether I travel and like hanging out with like Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, I just always felt more comfortable with people that look like us.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you're used to growing up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So when you decided to open up a store in Waikiki, which is probably one of like, probably Ala Moana and Waikiki is probably the hardest in my opinion. Because, I mean, but definitely worth it if you can make it work, because so much foot traffic, right? What was that like, and why did you decide to open up a Junbi and all of that?
So, my family, you know, we were like, let's do something here, right? That was one of the things. And then David So, my other business partner, we've always had this like connection here where it was like, let's not just come here for vacations. Like, let's find a way to, like, I don't know, create a concept. Cause like we have fans from Hawaii, right? And they know about like some of our restaurants, and they're like, bring it to Hawaii. So it's like, at first we were like, why don't we do some fusion stuff like with spam musubi and all that? And then we're like, nah, there's already a lot of that. And it's like, duh, we already have a matcha tea shop. We already have like these other concepts. And when local people come and visit us, they always say like, when are you going to bring it to Hawaii? So I'm like, no brainer, dude. Let's just do this.